here with Simone Bichot. Simone, did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did.
Terrific. First hurdle overcome. And Simone is a very successful coach, a business and life coach, and has consented to share some of her experience and trials and tribulations and advice for new coaches. Simone, I thought we would get started by talking a little bit about what you were doing just before you started coaching.
Just before I started coaching, I was a vice president at a software company. I was doing accountable for all of client services, which included the training material, help desk, and documentation, as well as all of the project management on implementation of our software. So
you were working to a large extent with teams or mostly with technologies and systems?
Primarily with teams, and it was a small software company. There were 15 people, and then we were on Fortune 1000 projects, so companies like Cushman & Wakefield, World Bank, large public entities like Chicago Public Schools. So working with pretty broad, dispersed teams.
Gotcha. And how did you decide to transition to coaching?
Actually sitting down with the president and owner of the software company, who was in his early 80s, and he and I were talking about what I loved about what I did and what I didn't like about what I did. And what we noticed was I didn't like the administration, the day-to-day minutia of it, and that I was really good with developing teams and the future and even the infrastructure on a project. And he said, I was like, I'm just tired of this. And he went, well, you should go do that. It was the first time somebody had said that to me. I never thought of myself as an independent soul, and then I just really started looking at it. I didn't have any clients out of the gate, but I tendered my resignation, and he thought that was grand, and he mentored me the first couple months out of the gate, just in having conversations about creating business from nothing, and that's how I started.
Did he use the word coaching, or was he talking more about consulting? How did he present that to you when he said you should go do that?
The context of the conversation was really, you should go do things that are about creating something. So creating a team or the next phase, and that's what I heard him say that really piqued my interest was, I love the whole creating it and getting it running and producing results.
Gotcha.
Specifically with people, but, people in the business means is it making money or not. I find that exciting.
Mm-hmm. When he mentored you in the course of getting your first clients, would you mind saying more specifically what that was about?
Yeah, we just had lunch occasionally and exchanged some emails and talked about what was happening. So I was attending events and I was talking about the services I could provide for people, the basics of marketing. And then I would go talk to him. And the biggest thing he provided me was reminding me of my capabilities, my credibility.
And when you went to these events and you went with the confidence that you had credibility, then you were able to get some clients right away, or was it difficult?
Yes.
You did get clients right away?
I did get clients right away, and, when I left the software company, I was making six figures. I really did walk away, and so for me there was, I need to produce something as well as want to make a difference with people. So the first couple clients I got were some project management, and by project management it was training project managers, and not in the traditional sense like the minutia of how do you project manage. It was training and coaching them and how do you manage a decentralized team of people. So it was development.
Gotcha.
What it was just me sharing what I had, produced in the business world and what I was an expert at, or at least exceptional at, and shared with them in a way that I was confident and certain I could train them to do the same.
Gotcha. So if your boss hadn't been telling you that you had that credibility, would you imagine that it would have been more difficult to get clients in the beginning?
Yeah, because there were moments when I would go to events or go to meetings to meet with people that I don't know if it was scared, but I was certainly uncomfortable. And having conversations that had me be aware of my credibility and that I did know what I was doing had me be more comfortable with going and having those conversations with people.
And it was as simple as reviewing your experience and having someone shine a mirror in your face about...
Yeah.
I see. Was there anything that was surprising as you began to take on clients?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things, because my particular segment of where I coach in is really the business world. And I think the biggest surprise was all of the things in my education and experience that, you should do and you shouldn't do. You find yourself, waist deep in doing the thing that you even know you're not supposed to be doing. So taking clients that aren't a fit for you, not that you don't produce what you promised them, but you're not having very much fun and it isn't fulfilling.
I see.
So that's one big thing I learned in the beginning.
Was it the financial pressure to get an income going that caused you to do that, or was it something else?
I think it was both. It was the thought that I've done all this work to get clients, I should take these clients, and then it wouldn't be okay to tell them no. Like that would be something that wouldn't work for my business, for me to decline to work with certain people. Up to that point, my thought was, well, I know that it doesn't work to take all the clients that come your way, but certainly that doesn't mean me, and certainly it doesn't mean these clients, when in fact, at the end of the day, it was not just money, but it was, I thought I should do that because that's what somebody should do in business when they're developing their business.
Work with anybody that knocks on your door.
Yeah, or at least that you qualify as, of your market that you're marketing to.
And how did that begin to change? It sounds like you're looking back on that and you're feeling like that was a minor mistake and that's something that you changed, that now you wouldn't take those same people. Do you remember the transition?
Yeah, the transition was beginning to define exactly what I was willing to work with, and by work with, not just the people or the type of business I was willing to work with, but like the ground rules I was willing to work with people inside of. So that started to become very clear to me, and I started to write them down and plan. I want clients who I can make a difference with, and that this is the area I can make a difference with them in, and I started to market to that. And obviously I had a couple experiences that were, for me, they were small business owners who thought, if I have a coach, then a business coach, then I don't have to be responsible for my business. I'm now hiring somebody to be responsible.
I see.
And that, for me, was the defining thing for me, how I select my clients. I'm willing to work with people who want to be developed, but are very clear they're committed and responsible for their own business.
How do you distinguish between the two in the beginning?
Well, like I mentioned, being hip deep in something was being on the phone with a client and having them say, well, you didn't do X, Y, and Z, and you should have known that. And in that moment, I noticed, they actually think I'm responsible for their business. And I said that to my client. Well, what it sounds like you're saying is, I'm now responsible for your business, and that's actually not the case. So that was all the way into the relationship with my client that I noticed that that's what their attitude was.
To use the language of blaming as opposed to being proactive.
Yeah. And what I started to do was just say it in the initial interview with people. One of the things I promise you will produce results. Now, there's a couple ground rules in working with me, whether I'm your training you do project management or training and developing you as an executive or whatever it might be, that there's some work for you to do. And it's not my work. It's your work. And the freedom to say that to people.
Is that exactly how you put it?
Yeah. Actually, what I say to them is, there are going to be moments when you don't like me because I'm going to tell you something about your business that needs to get handled. And because I work with the owners and executives, it really is them they need to deal with something. Or we'll be in a project, we're going to say that you're going to do these 3 action items by next Tuesday, and I'm going to call you on Tuesday or see you on Tuesday, and I expect that they're done. And you might not like that. But I promise you, if you work with me and you do those things, it will make a huge difference in your business. That's what I say.
And do you find that there are still some people who say, I can imagine 2 sets of people. There might be a set of people that say, well, I don't want anything to do with that, and this woman's too bossy, and I'm going to just keep looking for someone else. There might be another kind of person who would say, that's terrific, bring it on. And then there would be someone who would say, that's terrific, bring it on, but then when it comes down to it, they would still blame you?
Yeah, that happens.
Uh-huh.
And I find that it didn't take very long as a coach to, when the client does that, because I said it out of the gate, I don't have any loss of power with them or any loss of relatedness with them to say, you're doing that thing I told you was going to happen.
You're keeping to the contract, I see.
Because I said it out of the gate and I say it as a, kind of a condition of the relationship that this is predictably what will happen. Now, it might not, and that would be great. but it's predictable at some point you're going to think that, and you might even say it to me. And I would say 6 out of 10 people laugh.
When you call them on it, they laugh.
Yeah, they go, oh, God, I'm doing that thing, right? And there's really no... Then there's a couple of people who are a little more personally attached to their business and their role in the business that might get a little upset. But I haven't had anybody who I had that conversation with in the beginning of the relationship that when they do that, and I say that.
It's so important to set up the ground rules.
Yeah, very, very important. What comes to mind is I had a client who was avoiding things tremendously. She was running a very high-end carpet company and not trained as an executive at all, really had been the bookkeeper and family-owned and assumed it and was really, truthfully, avoiding me. And at some point I said that, and she was kind of upset that I said it to her. And after that conversation, she really got serious about her business. She said that conversation is what made a difference for her. And then we started talking, like, what would make a difference. And ultimately we got her a turnaround consultant, and she had somebody come in and work with her to turn the business around.
That's so often the case in a coaching relationship. I find that when certain aspects of the relationship itself are called into the forefront, if there's some way that you had presented what would it mean to have a cooperative relationship, and when the client is having difficulty going along with that, and that's explored, often I find that that can be a time of transformation. Just for the reason that you're saying that those are the places that somebody's business and their personality are very intertwined. And by bringing it to the forefront and kind of dissecting it and saying, well, what do you really want to accomplish here, then people are able to move out of that. So I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Thank you. Yeah, that is very important for me with my clients, because working in the business realm, they might tell other people about what's happening in their business, but I work with them and I look at their numbers, and with them, there's no hiding anything from me. So it gets very personal, or at least private, for people.
Gotcha.
And I like to have that structure in the relationship so that it isn't even really anything for me to coach, it's for them. So when it does happen in that relationship, that's really the thing that's keeping them from being successful, like them being fulfilled in their experience in their business. Is that usually that thing that they come back to me, I'm not going to do that, or it's your fault.
Yep,
or,
and that's where the real opportunity is, because you've got a live laboratory to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of your current goals and pursuits in terms of developing your coaching practice, are you happy with the types of clients that you're taking in? Is there some way that you'd like to see your practice transform? How long have you been doing this, by the way?
This 3.5 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
Before the software company, I developed law firms for 12 years. So I love business development, and I love developing executives and owners to have great businesses.
Do you work with a wide variety of different types of businesses right now, or are they all technologically related?
Right now, all professional services at some level. I have law firms, real estate agents, development companies, architects, engineers, web design companies,
Gotcha.
interior design companies. Yeah, they're usually in a service arena, because I am very committed that there be extraordinary customer service for people, and that's in professional services.
Gotcha.
My niche.
Gotcha. Are you happy with the way that your practice is developing?
Yes, really delighted, actually. We started with, I have a business partner, and that was an intentional act on my part, so that I would have someone to bounce things off of and make promises to, and something I would be able to press against in the cycles of business. And we both have very different niches. Hers is primarily financial consulting and designing accounting systems, and mine is more business development, working with the business owners to develop them and their business cycles. And it is moving in the arena of where I was doing a lot of hourly work to, in the last 6 months, transitioned to a lot of contracts, monthly contracts. I'm ongoingly working with people and developing certain things for themselves and their business.
Gotcha. Do you ever work with a coaching business? Have you ever helped another coach to develop their coaching business?
Yes, I have.
Is that something that you find satisfying?
It is, because I get to deal with them in the structure of business, which is my passion. So I love working with coaches or consultants on their businesses. So I've worked with a couple. They were more life coaches in the arena of health and well-being, and have worked with 2 different women on their businesses. They really were in the very embryo stage of what they were doing in their business, and they're now, one's probably 2.5 years, and one's probably about a year into their business now, and doing well, accomplishing the goals they set for themselves.
And when you work with a life coach, I would imagine from what you're describing, that you probably offer something that most mentor coaches or coaches of coaches don't offer as much, which is a focus on the structure of the business and the growth of the business? Or do you spend more time doing like more supervisory, how do you deal with this issue and that issue with a particular client?
The best way to describe my style is I'm really like a muse for them.
Like a muse?
Like a muse.
Uh-huh.
So the conversations primarily consist of they have particular goals and they don't see how to accomplish them in a step-by-step, for example. What my intent in the conversation is really to listen for, they already know. Really, for me as a coach and a consultant, I don't bring some mystery to my clients. I'm really there to listen for what they already know. And then because I am facile with structures, work with them in what they share with me, that it will be a structure that they will sustainably, over time, stick to, so that they can measure their efforts and make a difference for their business. So that might be the last gentleman I was working with is a business owner who owns the little shopper magazines that go out, so the advertising magazines. And he knows what he wants his business to look like in 3 to 5 years, but between now and then he really couldn't say what that was when I first interviewed him. And now he's able to tell me exactly the steps he sees now, kind of what he thinks, and we're now working on devising a plan for that to happen. But he knows, he was in sales for 15 years. He knows how to do those things. It's just not clear for him in his business currently, and that's my job, is to have it be clear, to create with him the steps that he will take to fulfill on those goals he has in his business.
I love it. I got it. Sounds terrific. If you could go back and do anything over about the way that you started, I know that you talked about the importance of setting the ground rules. Is there anything else that you would do over if you could 3.5 years and start out again?
Well, that's a good question. I would not put any constraints on what I wanted to do with people. What I know I did then was qualify what I said I could provide people, because I was concerned whether or not they would think I really could do that, because I hadn't been a coach before, formally. So when I said that I could start it, I had the scope of what I could provide for people very limited.
Could you give me an example of how you might have done that?
What I started out with saying was I would do consulting and coaching work with people specifically in the arena of records management and project management, and that I would both do the work, consult, and coach. Like the 3 levels. I would really coach you to do the work. I could train you on the court, or I could do the work for you.
I see.
And really, I'm a business development consultant, and I work with people across the board, both developing them. I do strategic implementation projects and develop executives and do coaching, to going into a small business and sitting with the business owner and really coaching him on how to have his accounting system work. I love everything from the national hairstyling chain, which I've worked with, to the little corner contractor.
So in the beginning, because you were trying to maintain your integrity or because you were frightened that you might get in over your head, you only presented to people that you could coach them on very, very narrow range of experience that you had many, many years of doing very specifically.
Yes.
But what you found was that as you began to work with people, that you saw you had many more competencies than you really thought that you did, and you really a broader range of clients and goals that you'd be able to work with.
Yes, and what was not clear for me when I started was what I provide for people really is certainty. Certainty that it'll work out. I'm certain they're capable. And that's kind of an abstract thing, and not necessarily a business word, but something that pretty much any human being, but particularly business owners, don't always have for themselves, is the certainty that it will work.
It's kind of like what your boss gave you as you were starting.
Yes.
And the way that you give them that certainty and confidence is through that muse process that you described, where you listen carefully and you elicit the step-by-step plan that's in them. They just don't know that it's in them?
Yes, I love that. They have the experience when they meet with me that they're brilliant.
Certainly makes you want to call you up as a coach.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it begins to create for them an experience in their business of certainty. Oh, I do know how to do this. Okay. If I know how to do this, what do I need? And creates a new way of thinking for them in their business.
Got it.
Which is my intent.
Did you feel that you needed any specific training when you went out to start coaching?
Yes, and I had a lot of public speaking experience and developing, because I developed law firms, I had developed everything from the receptionist to lawyers professionally, and that was imperative, that I could interact with any personality I met. Everything from somebody who's very shy to the rock star personalities in life.
And you felt that you had that ability, though, when you stepped out the door, didn't you? Or did
Yes.
Did you go to a training institute or something like that?
I didn't go to a training institute. I had different types of training over the years in that regard to develop myself professionally. I had training with regard to developing others and leadership, which was really, I felt, imperative over time. There were moments when I was clear that training made all the difference for myself and my client.
Okay.
And really the leadership training where an individual gets trained to be comfortable with exactly what I was pointing to, leaving them, that other person I'm interacting with, that they're brilliant. I don't have to, my ego doesn't have to be involved.
Gotcha.
And it's fulfilling and satisfying.
Simone, for the people out there who might be sitting in the position that you were 3.5, 4 years ago, and looking over their experience and wondering whether they really have the basic skills that are necessary to get out and do some coaching, what would you say? How would you suggest that they evaluate and answer that question?
I would say sit down with somebody who knows you but will be straight with you and start making a list of the things you love, just having a dialogue with them about, or a conversation with them about what they see you're good at. And you'll start to notice where those things that you love to do and are passionate about are the things that other people notice you're really good at.
I think that's a really good point. For those areas that there are discrepancies, that's some place that you can work on improving before you make the jump.
Yeah, whether it's, getting trained as a coach in a program, to finding the resources for you to have, because sometimes the gaps are not just maybe getting coaching development, but it could be just running a business, finding the resources.
Sure. When you stepped out, you resigned from your job and you gave up your six-figure income and you said, I'm going to make this work, or did you start doing a few consulting jobs before?
I'm kind of audacious. I really did step away, and my husband, I don't think, really took me seriously when I said I'm going to go resign today. And I came home and said I didn't have a job, and he said, well, okay, but, you really do have to replace your income. And so I did that. I was a big game, and there was a risk. I have 2 children, and I'm married, and I have a mother-in-law that lives with us, so there was several people counting on me.
I got it.
But I created a game for myself that was something that was empowering for me, that got me out of bed every day,
and so
even when I was scared.
And you rose to the challenge.
Yeah, and I did. It had me rise to the challenge daily. And within a year, I had replaced my income. Now, that isn't always everyone's experience, but there were some other people counting on me to do that.
The life coaches that you've worked with, did they have a similar experience, or were they working on starting their practices more slowly?
Primarily much more different rate, much slower rate. Most of the people I've even talked to as just in the business community here started with a full-time job and trained themselves and set themselves up to be coaches while they were employed. And then once their business was at a particular size, they stepped away from their full-time employment and just changed their lifestyle, because it can be a lifestyle change.
Sure.
For me, I had been traveling 3 weeks a month on business, and I was clear I wanted my business to be regional, not national. I was not going to travel 3 weeks a month.
Gotcha. So, Simone, I would imagine that since you focus so strongly on business coaching, that you might not come up against the confusion and the gray line between coaching and psychotherapy as much as a strict life coach might. Although, what you were describing before about having to confront a business owner about taking responsibility starts to get into personality issues and relationship issues. But I'm wondering, do you experience any difficulty in delineating the difference between coaching and psychotherapy for your clients? And then more generally, if you've given any thought to the issue about the difference and how you might explain it.
That is a good question, because like the company I mentioned where they were a carpet company, that very much comes up for me. They will start to share with me their whole life, partly because, I'm trained to listen so well. And then I just have the freedom to ask them, for example, when it steps over the line. I had one woman whose daughter got pregnant, and there was a concern about her mental well-being, and, and it gets very, very intimate and detailed because they trust you, and they now want to confide in you. And so the line does come up for me. And how I deal with that and manage that for people is, when I listen, and then if it's clear they're wanting me to coach them or to deal with them differently than just my role that I'm there for, I just ask them, do you have somebody you can talk to about that?
Got it.
And if they say, well, no, not really, well, I don't recommend anybody, but I say, there are people out there who would be more than happy to talk to you about that. And I want to leave them honored that they would share that with me in the relationship, but I also don't want them thinking that I'm going to provide that type of support for them.
So you very respectfully make it clear that you're not trained to do that and that works out for you.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. Do you do all of your coaching on the telephone?
No, I'm in Seattle. We have this crazy phenomena of a ton of coffee shops. So I do it on the phone, and then a lot of people like to see me, so we'll meet up at a coffee shop.
You know who Lewis Black is?
No.
Lewis Black is a comedian, and he says that he figured out where the end of the world was. He was in Seattle, and he walked out of a Starbucks, and across the street he saw another Starbucks, and he decided that has to be where the world ends.
That would be here.
Yeah. Anyway, I like him. Did you have any difficulty in setting up your schedule and managing your time when you transitioned from your regular job to doing coaching?
I didn't now. I'm probably an exception because having developed law firms, I was heavily trained in, every 6 minutes of my day being accountable for. And that isn't something that constrains me. So I love having my schedule booked, and what I would do is, for example, when I started, I obviously didn't have a lot of clients, so I set my plan in place, and I figured out the time during the week I needed to market, the time I needed to be on the phone following up with people. I actually did cold calls in the beginning, and then also doing things that kept me excited about my business. So whether that was meeting with people or doing things. So I just really, even though I didn't have work in an 8-hour day, I booked myself for 8 hours to work on my business.
What types of things would you do when you weren't meeting with people to keep you excited about the business?
Well, the Internet, I would research the type of business I was providing for people and any competitors and learn something new. I would either have a book or go on the Internet and learn something new about the industry to continue my education and development. Meet with somebody who was maybe just a friend or associate that we could talk about our businesses and talk about them, not to complain about them, but really to talk about them, what was exciting, what was happening, here's what's happening in my business, so that I was saying things out loud to someone else about my business working.
Great. I think that's a golden tip right there for people in the beginning. It probably can help you to maintain your self-confidence and motivation, and as you're struggling with the growing pains, to have that day in and day out is something to motivate you. I think that's wonderful. I'm just about out of my questions. Is there anything in particular that you think our listeners should hear from you about the experience of being a coach or getting coached, or anything you'd like to leave them with?
Yes. I think that what I find made the biggest difference for me and that I bring to all of my coaching relationships is I want to know what people's passion is. And for me, when I'm sitting with a business owner and we're talking about them and their business, that is really a lot of fun for me. And I might have conversations like I shared before that I have to say something that might be uncomfortable or I don't know how they're going to respond to. But when I really am passionate about what I do, it isn't that I look like I'm really, really excited as much as I'm really comfortable to say whatever there is to say in that moment. And it is an experience for me, like being 8 years old at my grandfather's desk with a great big adding machine and the kind of fun I had as a kid, the freedom that was. And to be able to have a career where I do that every day makes a huge difference for what I get to provide to my clients.
I love it. Simone, this has been just wonderful.
Thank you.
If any of my listeners would like to get in touch with you as a coach or otherwise, is there somewhere that they can reach you?
Absolutely. They can reach me at my business number, which is 206-956-4193, or at my email, which is S as in Sam, BACHAUD @knowledgeintegration.net. I would love to speak with them or have a conversation via email with them.
Thanks very much for your time and attention. If you'd like to find out more about taking your coaching to the next level, getting certified, and building the practice of your dreams, please visit becomearealcoach.com. 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 Thank you.